Today's topic is adjective endings in German. This is one of the trickiest things to get right in German for a couple different reasons. First of all, it's tough because you need to get the genders and cases of nouns right in order to get the adjective endings right. The endings depend on the case and the gender of the noun they're modifying. To make matters worse, the endings sometimes depend on what type of word comes before them. All in all, this requires a fair amount of attention to detail with grammar. This video is going to show you how to think through which endings to use, but truly mastering adjective endings in German requires a whole lot of practice until the endings just come out automatically. First of all, let's talk about when adjectives do not have any endings. German adjectives only take endings when they precede or come before a noun. So for instance, in sentences like Der Hund ist groß or Mein T-Shirt ist blau, you don't need to add anything to the adjectives groß or blau. When an adjective does precede a noun, though, that's when you'll need to start thinking about adjective endings. So in sentences like Der große Hund spielt Frisbee or Mein blaues T-Shirt ist alt, you'll notice that something has been added to the adjectives groß und blau. So here's big idea number one. Any German adjective that precedes a noun will at least add an E. You can never, ever, ever, ever have something like Der große Hund or Mein blau T-Shirt. By virtue of appearing before the noun Hund or T-Shirt, those adjectives cannot stay in their original form and must add at least an E. Here's big idea number two. The adjective endings for nouns in the dative case, the genitive case, or plural nouns is en, no matter what. So for instance, in a sentence like Ich fahre mit dem neuen Auto, where Auto is in the dative case, the adjective ending will be en. Or where Markt is in the dative case, you will have an en. Or with masculine accusative, you will have an en. Or with plural nouns like Katzen, you'll have an en. Or with genitive nouns like des Mannes, you'll add an en to the adjective. So, with dative, genitive, and plural accounted for, that leaves singular nouns in the nominative and accusative cases. So here's big idea number three. E's and N's repeat. R's and S's do not. Here's how this would look with feminine words, for instance. Meine kleine Schwester spielt gern Tennis. The E from meine can repeat. The E on die in die nette Frau can repeat. Or the E on the end of eine in Ich brauche eine neue Lampe can repeat. Similarly, with masculine nouns in the accusative case, the determiners have added en, and so do the adjectives, as in Ich möchte einen neuen Computer or Ich esse einen roten Apfel. So E's and N's can repeat, but R's and S's don't. When the determiner is der for masculine words or das for neuter words, those R's and S's on der and das do not repeat. Remember big idea number one. You need at least an E, so you end up with this. Der große Hund spielt mit dem Ball, or das rote Auto fährt schnell. Now, R's and S's don't repeat, but you need to have at least one somewhere. So while der and das have the R and S attached to them already, words like ein or mein don't have one, which means you'll add that R or S to the adjective ending in order to demonstrate the gender of the noun. Here's the quick summary so far. German adjectives before nouns will always add at least an E. When the noun is plural, in the dative case, in the genitive case, or a masculine noun in the accusative case, the adjective ending will be en. Otherwise, an E on a determiner can repeat. An R or S can't. If the determiner doesn't then already end in an R or an S, add one to the adjective, depending on the gender of the noun. Here's another way of saying the same thing. After a definite article, that's the fancy grammar term for the word the, you only have two choices for how to end an adjective. Either the ending will be en, because the noun is plural in the dative case, in the genitive case, or a masculine noun in the accusative case, Or the ending will be an E, because the E on die for feminine words can repeat, but the R on der and the S on das can't, so you just add an E. After an indefinite article or a possessive form, so a word like ein, mine, or dein, etc., again, the ending will be en if the noun is plural in the dative case, in the genitive case, or a masculine noun in the accusative case. Otherwise, the last letter of the adjective should be the same as the last letter on the word for the if you were to put that word in front of the noun instead of the adjective. That brings us quite nicely to one more thing you need to know about German adjectives. What happens when there isn't a word before an adjective? When the adjective is the only word before a noun, as in a phrase like, he has brown eyes, or I'm drinking black coffee. You're not saying the black coffee or my black coffee, you're just saying black coffee. The good news is that you just heard the answer to that question. Your adjective will end in the same way as the word for the if you put the word for the in front of the noun instead of the adjective. For instance, if I wanted to say that black coffee is likable to me, I would say der Kaffee, so I also say schwarzer Kaffee and steal the ending from der. Or if I say I like to drink black coffee, here I'd use den Kaffee in that context, so I take the en and add it to schwarz. Ich trinke gern schwarzen Kaffee. Milch is feminine, so I'd use die in this context, meaning I'll add an e to the adjective and say ich kaufe frische Milch. Wasser is neuter, so would correspond to das. I'll take that s and add it to the adjective ich möchte kaltes Wasser. Augen is a plural noun, which would correspond to die in this context if I use the word for the. Instead, if I use an adjective, I would say hat braune Augen, and the ending will be the same as the word die. And then finally, Tee is a masculine noun. Here it's in the dative case, so I'd say dem Tee, or eine Frau mit grünem Tee, and take the last two letters of dem and add it to the adjective. Here are a couple more things to keep in mind if you're not overloaded yet. When you have multiple adjectives modifying the same noun, you add the same ending to each one. For instance, you'd say die nette junge Frau hat ein intelligentes, freundliches, kleines Kaninchen, or der große, alte Mann hat einen kleinen, jungen Hund. These sentences are intentionally absurd. You wouldn't necessarily stack this many adjectives, but the point is, when one ending is one way, other adjectives in the same list will end identically. Next, adverbs that modify an adjective don't get endings. So for instance, in the sentence, die sehr junge Frau hat ein wirklich intelligentes Kaninchen, sehr and wirklich have not added anything because those are adverbs modifying the adjective jung and the adjective intelligent. Similarly, der ganz alte Mann hat einen sehr jungen Hund. Ganz and sehr do not receive endings because they're just adverbs. To try to consolidate what we know about adjective endings into a single image, here's a table where the columns show the gender of a noun, which never changes, and the rows show the case of a noun, which changes as the noun is used in different contexts. You'll notice that some of the cells are shaded in gray. Those adjective endings are always en. Remember, you add the ending en to preceded adjectives if the noun is plural, in the dative or genitive case, or a masculine noun in the accusative case. For other nouns, you'll notice that the letter e on the end of a determiner repeats as the adjective ending for feminine singular nouns, but the r on der and the s on das cannot repeat. You just add an e to the adjective. But when the determiner doesn't have that r or s, you tack that onto the adjective as well. Now, this table is the kind of thing you'll see in a textbook or find online if you search for information about German adjective endings, and it's certainly a useful way to start to see the patterns and rules that govern German adjective endings. A table like this could definitely come in handy when you're writing or editing your writing and want to really make sure you've got the correct adjective endings. But in reality, no one walks around with a table of adjective endings so that they can stop mid-sentence, triangulate the noun they're about to use on the table, think for a couple seconds about the adjective ending, and then finally continue with their thought. To really be able to use adjective endings reliably and spontaneously, You'll need to practice them a lot, and you'll need to just plain see and hear and use them so much that they start to become intuitive and automatic. I hope this video gives you a framework that you can use to start that process. Let's review. Adjectives that come after nouns never get endings. Adjectives before nouns always get endings, and those endings depend on gender, case, and sometimes also on what word comes before the adjective. If the noun is plural, in the dative case, in the genitive case, or a masculine noun in the accusative case, the adjective ending is en. For other nouns, you may repeat an e. R's and S's don't repeat, so if the word before the adjective has one, just add an e to the adjective. If the word before the adjective doesn't have an R or an S, add er or es to the adjective to match the gender of the noun. Unpreceded adjectives end the same way as a der word would in the same context. Thanks for watching, and happy Germaning.